Hello everyone. So today's video actually comes to you from the Ibis Hotel in Southampton, as opposed to my usual quarters. While I'm on a a little convalescent break, but no rest for the week. We still have to do a video, and today's is sort of more an advice-based piece, particularly for fellow authors who may be thinking about having their first promotional photo shoot. Whether that's for their new website or for social media posts, whatever the reason. And so this video is for those of you who, for whatever reason, may not know where to sort of start when it comes to planning those photos. So this is a sort of a 5 things to know when getting your author headshots done. I branched out from my usual photographer, a guy named Patrick Chermak, this year, and collaborated with a new friend of mine on my most recent headshots, which were actually taken outdoors. We did an outdoor shoot, which is something that I sort of avoided for reasons that I will go into in the subsequent video. Indeed, actually, that would be probably my first bit of advice before we go on to the main top 5, is get yourself a photographer that you get along with. If you are still establishing a relationship, don't go straight in to the shoot. Meet them for a coffee or something first. Get to know them, sort of understand how they work, so that they can get an understanding of how you are as a model as well. I was fortunate to know Patrick Chermak. I'd worked with him in previous jobs before I went freelance, so I was lucky there. And with Jamie Webb of JKW Media, who did my most recent shoot, I actually interviewed him for a couple of features on HQB News earlier in the year. So again, we'd sort of established a bit of a rapport. So, but again, before I sort of get into the main top 5, and this is going to be at the risk of sounding gushy, Jamie Webb, he is a phenomenal photographer. He's very calming, very easygoing person to be around, and a talent that's worth every penny that you pay, and more. So from me, he comes highly recommended. So whether it's your first shoot or your 15th, I encourage you to get in touch with him. That's at JKW Media, and I've left his links in the caption and or description depending on where you're watching this. So I urge you to check him out, check out his work. He's got a huge portfolio already for one so young. It is definitely worth a look. I of course also recommend Patrick for shoots both indoors and out. His links are also below. But before you get in touch with either of them, please consider the following points. Make sure it's on brand. So I brand myself as someone who's quite smart, professional, elegant, some have said. So it really wouldn't be on brand for me to have promo shots in t-shirts, hoodies, informal stuff basically. So I know it sounds quite obvious, but unless your campaign is deliberately saying something about challenging your brand, doing something different, then obviously that you do what you like. But otherwise, consistency is the key in this business when it comes to digital marketing, social media, all that nonsense. And that goes right down to how you look. Make the most of your backdrop. So if you're indoors, try to get your writing space into the photos, or maybe even the places around the house where you don't work, or parts of the house or your space or whatever that suit what's on show. So these photos were on an elegant, arguably period-looking dressing table, for example. They were just full of books. Whereas outdoor shoots open up so many more avenues. I come from Bournemouth in the UK, so which has a number of sort of remarkable sites of which to make use. We've got the pier, we've got the beach, we've got the gardens, plus a rich literary heritage, which for me as an author is good because we can tie into those links to Mary Shelley, Tolkien, Robert Louis Stevenson, John le Carré, etc., etc. So I would advise you to try and sort of draw on similar things depending on where you're from, if you're having your promo photos done outside. So make sure you're comfortable. This is a really important point. I tried an outdoor shoot last year, and we ended up only being able to use about 4 or 5 of the end results, and the only reason for that is I did not look remotely comfortable in the photos. It looked like I'd sat on something very sharp. Most of the time it sort of like a kind of all the way through. It was no good. It was no good. So if you're going for an outdoor shoot in a public place, I'd recommend finding a photographer who uses discreet equipment. An LED light stick, for example, as opposed to a full-blown light box. Again, Jamie Webb is very good for this, as we learn on our most recent shoot. It's a very discreet little light stick, and does the job perfectly fine. Just that and the camera, as opposed to a full photography studio lying in the middle of a sidewalk or in the heathland or something. It just draws far less attention from the public, and doesn't cause any sort of disruption or obstruction or anything like that. Yeah, that's what I would recommend. I mean, I know it seems obvious to say, well, if you don't like being photographed outdoors, then don't be photographed outdoors to get indoor shoots all the time. And there'd be nothing wrong with that, apart from you can run the risk of your content going stale that way. So having a mix of indoor and outdoor photos really adds to the variety, gives it a bit more fresh. So as opposed to just sticking to indoor shoots all the time, I would recommend sort of like get over it, get on with it, find a photography who makes you feel comfortable being shot in public. Could have been worded a bit differently, couldn't it? The next point is to have shots or captions in mind during the shoot. As many of you may know, I'm a planner with a vengeance, but on this last shoot that I did with JKW Media, I was asked to let Jamie know if I had any ideas shots wise. And apart from knowing that I wanted half with me and the Bournemouth backdrop and half me and the books, I had nothing. More ideas came to me as we were doing the shoot, and while that was happening I could sort of imagine what the captions were going to be to go with each photo and so forth when we upload them to Facebook and Instagram and whatnot. My experience aside, it definitely helps both you and the photographer to go in with some concrete ideas in mind. You're more likely to get the most out of your shoot, for one thing, and they're not generally cheap things, so it's important you get the most out of it. If you need ideas, I would recommend researching. See what your favourite authors are doing, see if there's any ideas that you like. And finally, don't repeat yourself. In the interests of keeping your content fresh, try not to go for the same poses, expressions, backdrops, outfits, hairstyles, etc. That may seem like an obvious point along with a lot of these in this video, but I know even I am guilty of making more or less the same face in some of my photos, for example. And with this point in mind, I say it actually helps to work with only one or maybe two of the same photographers, as opposed to getting different ones every time. It's all very well to sort of play the field in terms of the talent, but that's out there. But if you establish a relationship with these people, they'll become more familiar with you and your brand, and most importantly, they'll know what's been done before in terms of not only your content but by other people in the same or the similar field. They'll know how to sort of tweak it to make it different, to make it fresh, and they will always they'll be able to tell you if you're making that face again, and tell you it's not as flattering as you think. And thank you very much for listening, guys, and I would appreciate you chucking us a subscribe if you haven't already done so, and obviously also like and follow our pages on Facebook, Instagram, and also check out the website and the Amazon page, of course, as well. If you haven't already bought the books or reviewed the books, please do. Your support means everything, as always. But until next time, this is Hurst saying goodbye.